All right, today we're on with Ginny Leone.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Owner of JSL Recovery.
Yes.
And that's in Costa Mesa?
It's going to be in Costa Mesa, yeah. So It's brand new. We're just getting started. We'll probably have it all up and going, fingers crossed, God willing, by the end of the year.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Ginny Sober Lifestyle is your podcast,
Yes.
which most people in our world know about.
Yeah.
And it's growing and exploding, right?
Thank you. Yeah, it's so much fun. I love podcasting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nerve-wracking and it can be emotionally exhausting and mentally exhausting, but it's so worth it. Just being able to connect with people, get out there into the community, share stories, it's amazing. I love it.
Awesome.
Do you love podcasting?
I love it.
Yeah?
I'm brand new. You're
Yeah.
my fourth.
Okay.
So we're having a lot of fun with it. Mm-hmm. And I just enjoy the conversations with people. So
Yeah.
once I feel like I get into it, it feels like just talking to someone. And
Yeah.
being able to set your phone down and talk to someone for a while is
For
nice.
sure. Yeah, I feel like the first probably year of podcasting, I was a nervous wreck. Like
Right?
I would like be interviewing somebody and would just like draw a blank like halfway through, and then like, what was I going to ask this person? My nerves would be so bad, but it gets better.
Right.
It's one of those things where we just have to like put ourselves in uncomfortable situations
Sure.
to get more comfortable, right?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
like recovery and life in general.
Absolutely. So you've been sober for 7 years.
7 years, yeah. August 5th, 2016.
Right.
I don't really
Awesome.
celebrate birthdays like the typical like AA and A, all those groups, how they do the big birthday and the chips and all that. I try to celebrate every day. I feel like every day that I wake up sober is a miracle and a huge accomplishment. So people are always like, why didn't you have like a big celebration when you got 7 years? I'm like, well, every day is a celebration.
That's a great way to
It's
look
a celebration to be here right now talking to you. Like
Right.
never in my wildest dreams did I think 7 years ago that I'd be sitting here having this conversation.
Right.
So every day is an amazing day.
So let's talk about that 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to know a little bit about your background. The purpose of our podcast is just to get to know people that
Yeah.
are in recovery and know their journey and know where they came from. We all come from different walks of life, and
Yeah.
we all kind of end up, none of us plan on becoming addicts or alcoholics, but all kind of end up in the same place, and
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, my story starts when I was a little kid. I was raised in Vancouver, Canada. So I'm not from the States. And, my mom, just to give you a little backstory, she was 14, hitchhiking. My dad was 30. He was married to another woman, already had a kid, and he picked her up. And
wow.
so that's how that relationship started. So it was, not the best of relationships. And so, my dad was not available emotionally. He was the type of dad that was a provider, went to work, provided for the family. Unfortunately was, playing around on my mom, which is interesting because you just learn so much about the people around you when you get into recovery and you're
Right.
able to like see things for what they really are. Like I feel like I have such a better relationship with my dad now. He's passed, so I say, with him on the other side, I have a better relationship with him because I feel like I understand him now
Right.
in recovery, and that most likely he was a sex addict because the behaviors all show that. So I have a lot more compassion and forgiveness for him in my heart now. But back then, it was a lot of turmoil. I was unhappy a lot. My mom was a very loving, sweet mom. She did the best she could. We always have this idea of what we want our parents to be like, and they're supposed to be these like perfect people, right? And we don't realize until we get older, like they're just doing the best that they could do with what they had.
Absolutely.
And so she did the best she could. And so I was sexually abused, molested throughout my childhood by a family member. So that was from age 3 to 12. So that was an ongoing thing for me. And so that really like paved the way for me to go down that road into, wanting to numb myself out, having a lot of behavioral issues, not understanding what love really was, never feeling safe, very isolated. I had this whole part of my life that I didn't talk about. And then this other part of my life where I'm out playing with the neighborhood kids and doing sports and, had this life from the outside that looked great,
Right.
middle-class family, beautiful house, all the little bows and whistles that come with that. Yet behind closed doors, I was being sexually molested almost on a daily basis for 8 years. And so I really started numbing myself early. I'd say, 12, 13 years old. I started getting into, different types of party drugs, a lot of acid, ecstasy. Back then it was like the big thing, right? And I was a big raver, so I was raving all the time, like hanging out with the wrong people. Kind of jumped around from school to school, went to an alternative school at one point. My mom was just doing the best she could, trying to get me through school and get me through life, with everything that was going on. And yeah, so, with all of that, here I am still going to school, and I started to begin to model, act a little bit. I was putting myself through theater classes, and so was getting into that whole business. And at 18, the person that had molested me had got off probation and started coming around, trying to come around.
So to back up, at 12, that stopped.
It stopped. It stopped because I told what had happened. And the reason I hadn't told prior to that was because I was led to believe that bad things would happen. I'll just leave it at that if I was to say anything. So when I eventually told, no one really believed me, which was another huge blow. You finally say something, after so many years, and you're not believed. So I ended up taking my best girlfriend at the time, and we went to the police. And that person was arrested, and I was taken to the doctor and evaluations and put into therapy, and all that whole thing. So that person was arrested, and then they got off probation and started trying to come back around. And so at that point I was like, just into drugs and partying. I hadn't done any healing. I hadn't really done any work. I didn't want to see a therapist. It's like when you're a kid, especially teenagers, well, I'll speak for myself. I was very rebellious.
Sure.
I didn't want to listen to a therapist. It's like, can you swear on this? You can. Okay. I was like, fuck
Feel
you.
free.
Fuck you.
Right.
You don't know me. You don't
Right.
know what I've been through. You don't understand. No one understands me, right? Like
Right.
my story at that point in my life was so unique, and no one could get it. And I was already so comfortable being in my shit and being miserable and being angry. Because what's the opposite of being angry and miserable and sitting in that shit? That means doing the work, healing and forgiving. And
Right.
at 17, 18, 19 years old, I wasn't in any place or even thinking about that. It was like, either I'm going to leave and never come back to this area, or I'm going to kill this individual probably, or have somebody kill him, because that's the people I was running around with. And so I seeked out somebody in LA, and found a manager, got booked for a TV show, and bounced. So I left Canada, impulsively moved to the States. I was 19 with a suitcase with $3,000. Didn't know anybody but this one person and an American that I was going to marry. I was 43 years old, and left and moved and came out here and moved to Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh, wow.
And it's so funny because people think of Hollywood, especially Hollywood Boulevard, that aren't from here, like glitz and glam, and it's so beautiful and amazing, and all your dreams come true. What's that movie? Everybody's got a dream. Pretty Woman.
Right.
What's your dream?
Right.
And so, but it wasn't like that, when I got out here. I lived literally right off Hollywood Boulevard, and it was just a complete free-for-all. I ended up leaving the person that I married, and was just off and running. And at that point, I started being prescribed pharmaceutical medications. And so that's really where I got into trouble, because I was doctor prescribed Xanax, Adderall, and pain medication. And at this point, I'm really good at manipulating. And let's be real, if you go in and you see a psychiatrist and you have this background and have these issues, they'll prescribe.
Sure.
Right? And so, so I was prescribed. And so, I didn't think I had a problem. I really didn't. I was like, I'm good. I'm just taking these medications because I need to. I'm doctor prescribed. I didn't hang out with drug addicts. I had nice things. I was working at that point in film and television. I had a nice house. I had a nice car. I had a nice lifestyle. Like, there was no quote unquote red flags to anyone around me. And of course, I was lying to myself that there was something wrong, even though I was like slowly dying on the inside. And so, just like with addiction, it's you start chasing other things too. So I started really chasing money and fame as much as I could get at all cost. And so I started going into like the more adult arena, where I started doing magazine layouts and like back in the day, like I don't want to totally date myself on how old I am, but it was a long time ago. And I was on like every magazine cover in that industry and, just out there living my best life, or so I thought. This is funny, not funny. Like, I'll look back on pictures and I can just see that I'm barred out. And for anyone that doesn't know what that means, just massive amounts of Xanax. I can just see it in my eyes. Like, I wasn't really there. But I was making a ton of money, and I bought a house in Vancouver and I'm living this life out here and everything's great. I'm in my early 20s and everybody around me is doing the same thing. So it's like there was no sense of like reality.
Right.
Like, what is real life supposed to be? I didn't have any guidance. I'm out here by myself. I'm just hanging out with people that I've met. And I have all these things, so I must be doing something right, while I'm doing no inward work whatsoever. And so I just like got deeper and deeper into that scene. And, one day Jenna Jameson called me up and she was like, "Hey, I'd love to meet you." She had just started a company under Playboy. And she's like, "I'd love to contract you. Will you come out to my house?" And so I flew out to Arizona, met with her. And that became my life for like the next several years, where I was under contract with her. And we became good friends. And then I just got like real mixed up in that lifestyle with all these people. And I was only known as my AKA. So I had a different name that I would go by. And so here I am, this wounded girl from Canada that doesn't have any roots or family out here, no stability, no sense of reality, and nobody knew who the fuck I was.
Right.
I was this character. Like, literally, I was a character. Like, I would go and do this, and then I'd go home and like have my other life. And so during all of this, my drug use got more and more and more as I was starting to build up a tolerance. So at the end of it, I was taking, and when I say at the end of it, for like 10 years straight, at the most, I was taking, which sounds crazy even to say it, I was taking like 40 Norco 10s a day. I was taking 17 milligrams of Xanax and a massive amount of Adderall. Still not really thinking I had a major problem. And no one knew. Like, no one knew the extent of it. It was... People obviously probably knew like I took some stuff here and there, but no one knew the extent of it. And I didn't even know how deep I was in that mess until I tried to stop.
Right.
And I'll never forget the day I tried to stop. I was at my house. I was in Redondo Beach. And I was like, nah, you know what? I probably shouldn't be taking all these pills. It's starting to get super expensive because I had, the doctors that I would go to, but then I had one person that I would go and pick up from once a week and was spending like thousands a month on all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stop. And I stopped, and literally within like 4 hours, I was like taking myself to the emergency room because I was insanely sick, like having a seizure, sweating, throwing. It was horrible. And I realized real quick, like, wow, like I can't just stop these pills. And so, of course, my sick mind said, well, I guess you should probably just keep taking them then. Like, how are you going to not take these then? Like, you can't not have this lifestyle. You can't just put everything on hold. Like, I didn't even know what treatment was. Like, nothing. And so I just kept taking them. And I started to get sick. I started to lose weight. Like, there was things that were starting to pop up that were a little bit noticeable, but still not alarming to people on the outside. And so I continued working in that industry. And then the final thing for me, which got me out of that industry, was I was at an award show in Vegas that we would all go to every year. I always had a bodyguard with me, and that was assigned to me. And we were at the Playboy Club, and one of the executives for Playboy said, well, why don't you just come up to my suite and we'll call you a car? I'm like, okay, cool. Didn't even think twice. And like looking back, like something so valuable that I've learned in recovery is like seeing my part in things.
Right.
Because for so long, I was always like, God, it's crazy. Like I have the worst luck. Like, I don't know why these things keep happening. Like, it's nuts, what's going on, God? Like, why is this happening? And I didn't realize at all, like, my part in it, and that, I was putting myself in really horrible situations, not knowing, and not that I deserved any of those things to happen, but I didn't have the self-awareness, the clarity, none of that to be able to see, like, okay, this could be a potentially dangerous situation. Right. And so I went up to the suite, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go use the bathroom. And like, okay, we'll call your car. And my bodyguard was there. And I came out of the bathroom, and my bodyguard was gone, and it was just this executive. And he proceeded to rape me, and that went on for like 4 hours. And like there's rape, and then there's like rape and torture, and that was what it was. Like this person was like a deranged human being. But after that was said and done, I went to the hospital, did a rape kit, all these things happened, investigation, and he went free. Mm-hmm. And I think this is just so important to talk about, because it's one thing that I'm an advocate for, and anybody out there that's going through this, you can always reach out to me, is that when you're involved in the adult entertainment industry, or if you're just a woman or a man, because men go through this too, and you're on drugs and you get raped or something happens to you, a lot of times you're not believed or taken seriously because of who you are.
Right.
And so come to find out, he had done this to several women and never, ever got arrested because they were on drugs and in the porn industry.
Wow.
And they're just making it up. And I just liked rough sex.
Wow.
And so, when I went and did my rape kit, all this stuff came back, all my talk screen, like everything, on all these drugs. And I mean, it was just a whole thing. But in any case, silver lining, if you want to call it that, it got me out of the industry. I quit after that.
So that event, you just quit. I'm done.
I quit. Yeah, I quit. And I actually sued Playboy. Long story. I ended up walking away from that suit after like 2 years because it was just destroying my life. Like I was still actively using. They were just dragging me through the mud. It was horrible. And I'm like, this is going to end up like I'm going to kill myself over this. Right. So I ended up walking away from that. And then I got pregnant with my son. And so, it's the classic tale of thinking, okay, I'm going to have a baby and my child will keep me sober. Yeah. And unfortunately, as hard as it is to say, every time I say it, I kind of cringe on the inside, but our kids can't keep us sober.
No.
Nothing can keep us sober unless we genuinely have had that surrendering moment and that willingness and are just so sick and tired of being sick and tired and are like, fuck this, right. I need to do this for me. Like that's the only thing that's going to get us sober.
Right.
And so, I didn't get sober. I tried to. When he was 8 months old, I went up to a place, and on the 28th day, I left with a prescription of Adderall, and was just back off and running. And I kept it on the down low. Like people still didn't really know. At this point, I'm married to his father, my ex-husband. That was a very toxic relationship on both sides, right? Now that I can see my part in it. And I got really sick, over those last few years before I got sober. I got anorexic skinny. I lost my gallbladder, was always in and out of the hospital. And then I would start going on 5150 holds because I'd go into a psychosis from taking so much Adderall, not sleeping for over a week and not eating and being 100 pounds soaking wet pretty much. And it got really bad, and it got to the point where, my my mind, it was telling me, well, just start drinking. Like, if you start drinking, then you can just stop all the pills.
Right.
And then you can just stop the alcohol, like, no problem. Because alcohol was never a thing for me.
Right.
It was always just the pills. So I'm like, oh, that's a fantastic idea. That's what I'm going to do. And so I started drinking. And the drinking was a blessing in disguise because I got insanely sloppy. Blacking out all the time, putting myself in horrible situations, waking up in beds that I didn't know, you know what I mean? Like it was just all bad. And it finally came to a point just over 7 years ago where I was living with a guy in San Diego with my son out there, and I just had this moment. Like people always talk about like, oh, what was your bottom? And it's like I had a 50 fucking thousand bottoms.
Right.
You know, I've overdosed twice. I've been in horrible situations. Those, you would think those would all have been moments where I was like, okay, I gotta do something. But it never was. But it was just this moment, this like spiritual aha moment where I was sitting on the bed and I had a gun in one hand and I had my life in the other hand. And I knew at that very moment, if I didn't choose my life, I was going to die. And it was just that matter of fact. Like I knew at that very moment there was no other way. And for the first time ever in my life, I decided to ask for help. And for me, you know, I always thought that asking for help was a weakness, that asking for help was embarrassing, and oh God, what are people going to think of me? And why am I not just strong enough? Why can't I do this on my own? I always had those thoughts. So I never asked for help. And so when I finally said those words and asked for help, it was like 1,000,000 pounds just came off my shoulders. And I realized over time that that was the most courageous, bravest thing that I could ever do. And I like preach that to people out there that are having trouble taking that initial step, that it's so strong, so strong to ask for help. And I knew in that moment that my life was going to be forever changed. And so I went to treatment.
So how did you ask for help? What did you do?
So I asked my boyfriend at the time, and he was an angel. He immediately got on the phone, got me into treatment.
Okay.
And I went to treatment and really did the treatment, did all levels of care. And it was while I was in residential where I had another moment. And I was like, I need to, in one capacity or another, use everything that's happened to me and somehow turn that into a positive and help others, or else my whole life and all this is going to be for nothing. And what's the fucking point of that?
Right.
Like I need to help people. And so I put myself back in school for drug and alcohol studies and got my CADAC and started working in treatment. Do not suggest this within like the first 6 months of being sober. Right. I emotionally relapsed several times over the first couple of years just because I was not healed or healthy myself. But nonetheless, that's what I did. And I worked in treatment. I started as an intern, then a case manager, then a life coach, then operated sober living homes, and then started doing business development in the treatment space, which then led me to this. But, you know, the work that I did, though, the working in treatment was not my recovery. And I think that's also crucial for people to hear, because you have to take care of you and you have to really do the work. And I feel like for me, I didn't really start to feel at peace and like I'd done the work and had contentment and that self-love until about 5 years.
Yeah.
Like it really takes that long. Like people say that like, oh, the first 5 years. And it really was like the first 5 years. Like these last 2 years, I feel like I've really come into myself. And there's been some really key factors that that did that for me. And number one was going from a victim to a survivor. Because when we stay in that victim state of mind, we're not healing, and we're allowing this person or people to have so much control over us still. And we're still in that place of anger, right? And so how I got from victim to survivor was doing the work and finding forgiveness, like true forgiveness. And then people will say, well, why would I forgive somebody that raped me? Fuck that person. I'm not going to do that. And it's like, it's not about them. I don't forgive those people directly that did those things to me. But what I can do is I can turn it over to my higher power, right? And let my higher power deal with them and let go of that and at least move on from it and forgive myself, you know, because like for me, it was that. And then I had so much shame and guilt and embarrassment being a mom and, you know, with all the stuff that I had put my son through over the years. And it's like forgiving someone else is one thing, but forgiving ourselves and like holding that space for ourselves and being gentle on ourselves is really, really hard. Really, really hard work. So I had to do that. I left. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to kind of back you up a little bit. That first 30 days of sobriety, coming into treatment, and how hard that was, and what that experience was like for people that haven't maybe been through that. And,
I mean, it's literally a 1 day, sometimes 1 hour, sometimes 1 minute at a time experience, and just truly like trusting the process that you're doing this to better yourself, and that you need to experience all of it. And it's not going to be easy. It's not, and it shouldn't be a walk in the park, right? Like some people just go get sedated. Don't do that. You know, like I had to feel those things and come off of everything so that I don't live in that space, but I don't forget it. You know, like I don't forget what that was like. And just really, really being gentle on yourself. Like allow yourself to feel however you're going to feel. Like for me, I had numbed myself, not realizing when you're numbing the bad, you're numbing the good. So I was completely numb to everything for like 20 years. And so here I am in the first 30 days getting sober, having withdrawal symptoms, all that, but I'm also feeling for the first time. And it was so uncomfortable. But to just allow yourself to feel, because I made the mistake of trying to still hold stuff in and, don't show them, you know, like just let it all out. Like that's your time to heal. And if you're allowing yourself this time to get sober, feel everything because you're not going to heal if you don't feel. You got to just embrace it all, the good and the bad. And not every day is going to be good. Not every day is going to be good ever. Like this is life and life is messy and it's hard and it's a journey that you're going to be on for the rest of your life. You don't just get sober and now you're recovered. Okay, now just back to normal life again. Like it's a journey and it's rediscovering yourself and who are you? You know, for me, I was this AKA, I played this role. Who am I? What do I want to do with my life? And that's another thing, you know, really diving into like, who are you? What do you enjoy doing? Go explore all of it. Don't feel stupid. Don't feel cheesy. Don't like I'm the biggest dork ever. Like go try every activity because you don't know what you're going to like sober. You know, like most of us should be dead. So here we are given this opportunity at life, this superpower, and everybody should embrace that and really like take on that why not me mentality. Like that's another key thing for me that I started doing over the last couple of years when I started to get my confidence, because that was another big thing in early recovery. I'd go to meetings, I'd listen to people and, the promises, this, that, life beyond my wildest dreams. I'm like, yeah, maybe for you, but not for me. You know, I'm different. I had this, I had that. But I finally got to the mindset of why not me? You know, like if all these people can have these things, whatever it may be, like why not me? And really just grabbing life by the horns and being like, I can do anything I want to do as long as I get up every day in gratitude and that I'm humble and that I remember who I am and that I'm just so grateful for my recovery and that I live with good intentions every day. Like you can do anything, like literally. So, you know, that's been the journey. I
loved what you talked about. I think we talked about it off camera, but we talked about you having 7 years and you spoke about you don't really celebrate a birthday. Can you expand on that?
And I mean, I mean, people love to celebrate their birthday, so please keep doing that too. I'm not saying don't do that, but I just feel that every single day that we wake up sober is a miracle. It's truly a miracle. And to embrace every single day as a celebration. Like I celebrate myself every single day. You know, you wake up, it's like, here I am, I'm sober again. Fuck yeah. What am I going to do with this day? It's my birthday every day.
Right.
You know, because if we really are leaning into the mentality of being in the moment and being present, then that is every day.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's not promised.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so we're here and we're sober and we're miracles.
Right.
So even if it's a rough day, even if all you did was just get out of bed today, but you did it sober, that's a celebration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing about some of your traumatic experiences. And you talked about having to do the work to kind of get in a mindset where you went from victim to survivor. Can you talk a little bit about that work and what that entailed and what you had to do?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I worked in an AA program pretty hardcore for the first couple years. I suggest everybody should do the steps at one point in their life. Even if you're not in recovery, the steps are amazing. And, you know, then I kind of went on my own journey after that. I'll go to a meeting here or there now, but I'm not a big meeting person at this point in my recovery, but I have a real spiritual recovery. You know, I worked with several different therapists, different modalities. I was really big on EMDR. I did a lot of like inner child work and a lot of spiritual work. I surround myself with people that I admire, that I look up to. I have mentors in my life. I made sure to get those immediately into my life. I just think that's crucial. Like, I think a lot of people get into recovery and they don't seek out the people that they need around them.
Right.
You know, and they'll work in a program or, you know, a support group, but find those individuals that you look up to. Like the person that I'm going to go see after this, his name's Doug Hellman. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
He's an older gentleman that runs the Orange County Rescue Mission, and he came and spoke at my school when I was there for drug and alcohol studies, and he came in and was talking about his recovery journey and where he worked, and I was like, I have to know this man. And so I waited until after the class, and I said, I need to know you. And so he became one of my mentors, and I started volunteering at their facility. And so just, you know, for me, it was the therapy, support groups, a lot of AA, spiritual work with my higher power, and just surrounding myself with mentors and people that are winning in life. You know, and winning in life could be anything. I'm not just talking about financial career success. I'm talking like spiritual success, emotional success, you know, seeing somebody that I can tell is just genuinely laughing and happy. I want to know you.
Right.
Always grow, always learn.
Yeah.
You know? So
I loved what you talked about we have to get sober for ourselves and our kids can't keep us sober. You and I have similar stories with kids and, you know, being out there in our addiction and thinking, why can't I just get cleaned up for my kid?
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. Can you talk a little bit more about that and then fast forward and talk a little bit more about being a mom and recovery and what that looks like?
Absolutely. Yeah. Never, ever, ever give up. Ever. And, you know, if you're a mom or you're a dad out there and you don't have your kids, you're trying to get your kids back, you've put them through all these different things, don't give up. It will get better. And for me, it was very dark for a long time. There was moments in recovery of helplessness, thinking that I wasn't going to get my son back. Me and my son were inseparable for the first 8 years of his life. And then when I got sober, long story, but I ended up leaving my now ex-husband, and I left my son at our family home, thinking it was a selfless act that he didn't have to change schools, he could be in the family home, and then he would come and stay with me. Well, what happened after that was he was kept from me, and it was extreme parental alienation, which for anyone that doesn't know what that means, it's the other parent essentially brainwashing the child to not be around you.
Right.
And so I had to go through court proceedings that went on for 2.5 years. Family court system, I could go on a whole other thing. That's a whole other podcast about that. It's not easy. You're essentially guilty until proven innocent. And so I had to fight like hell to get him back. And the things that worked was being consistent, always showing up no matter what. No matter what. Like 95% of it in anything in life is just showing up. And so always showing up. Love is an action. So I was constantly showing him in my actions who I was. I had an amazing reunification therapist that he would go there once a week and meet me there, and hated me at first. And eventually, slowly, we started to rebuild our relationship. Patience, tolerance, compassion, love, and truly listen. I didn't defend myself. I didn't, get upset. I just listened and let him do and say everything he needed to say to me to get out, everything he was feeling. And I never bashed his dad.
Right.
Like, in my opinion, I want him to look at his dad like that's his superhero.
Sure.
He's the most amazing man in his life. He doesn't have to know any of this, because trust and believe, as our children get older, as my son has, he's now 15, they start to see things for what they are, all on their own. Right. You don't have to tell them anything. And time heals. It heals us. It heals our children. It heals the relationship. And so here I am now. My son's 15. He lives with me full time.
That's awesome.
Lives with me full time. And we have an amazing relationship.
So what's that relationship look like? It's tough.
Now?
I'm a teenager.
Holy
dad.
shit.
Yeah.
15-year-old. What's great with our relationship is that he actually likes hanging out with me. So we do a lot of cool, fun stuff together. But of course, he's rebellious at times and disrespectful. But we have such an open relationship because I've been so open about my recovery and my own struggles that he feels safe to tell me everything. So sometimes I'm like, I don't want to hear about that with a girlfriend or something. Like, I don't hear muffs, la la la. I don't want to hear that. But I mean, for the most part, it's a great relationship. Yeah.
That's great. So now you're 7 years sober. So what's life look like for you today? So
life now is, like they would say, is beyond my wildest dreams. I wake up, I live in Huntington Beach. I do my affirmations that I do my gratitude list, I do my morning prayers. I usually go down to the beach, take my dog, walk doggy beach. I did that this morning, and I just stood there for like 5 minutes just looking out at the ocean like, this is my life, and I created this, I live a purposeful life, and every day is meaningful. I spend time with my son. I do my Jenny Sober Lifestyle podcast. I connect with amazing people every single day. And I just get out there in the recovery community. I go do fun things, and I take care of myself, and I put myself first, and I love myself, and I enjoy my own company, which is insane to think that I would get to that point, because I was the person that could never be alone. I always had to be with somebody doing anything. And now I'll go eat at a restaurant by myself. I don't care. A lot of times I'd rather do that. Like, I enjoy my own company. I spend time with myself. I work out. I read books. I go for walks. I love going on like daycations and just driving down the coast and doing things like that's for me. If I'm feeling, in my feels overwhelmed, I don't really get triggered anymore. But if I can feel a physical response to something, like I'm feeling anxious or just having certain emotions come up, I'll go for a drive along the ocean. I'll blast the music. I'll go do a good workout. I'll contact a friend. I'll contact one of my mentors. And I just live a very healthy, self-aware, meaningful, goofy, happy life.
I love it.
That's it.
I love it. And so to end, you've started JSL Recovery.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
You've been in that business working for other people for a long
Yes.
time, and you've decided you're going to branch out and
Yep.
do that on your own. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. I feel like everything I've done in treatment for the last 7 years was grooming me towards this position. And it's something I've always wanted to do, was have my own treatment center. I've been able to see and learn about the gaps that are needed, things that aren't happening in the outpatient setting, which is the level of care that people don't know that come to after they go through like detox residential, where they get back to real life. And that's where like the real meat and potatoes is. And it's like, okay, who are you? What do you want to be? What do you need to work on? Let's do this together. Like, let's really build this community together of what you need around you. I will use a lot of what worked for me. as some examples, and just help people explore what that really looks like to them. Like when I got sober, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was never going to have fun again. Who was I? Like nothing. And so to be able to be in a place, that's what I want to provide, where people can explore all of that and work on all of those things long term.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having
I know
me.
You have an appointment after this.
Yeah. I feel like I
but-
drank like way too much coffee.
No, that was awesome.
And didn't eat. And I just did this for like an hour.
It was great. Loved it. All right. Well,
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
High five.
All right.